I am genuinely heartbroken knowing that after episode 10, there will be nothing left. No more Jamie. No more Claire. No more stones. No more waiting. And I think that is exactly why this finale carries so much weight, not just for us as fans, but for the story itself. Because this is not just the end of a season. This is the end of a journey that has consumed so many of us for so long. So before we say goodbye, we need to talk. We need to talk about what episode 9 quietly set up, what the promo is actually showing us, what the Battle of King's Mountain is really going to mean for Jamie and Claire, and most importantly, whether any of our favorite characters are actually going to survive it. And then, because I know so many of you have been thinking about this, we are going to talk about Fanny, about Blood of My Blood, and about the possibility that this finale might not just be an ending but actually the beginning of something much bigger. So let's get into it because there is a lot to cover and we do not have much time left. Let's start with episode 9 because I think a lot of people are still processing everything that happened, and honestly, rightfully so. Episode 9 was one of those rare episodes that manages to be both deeply emotional and incredibly action-packed at the same time. And I think the reason it works so beautifully is because it's centered on Lord John Grey. And look, I have said this before and I will keep saying it. Lord John Grey is one of the most brilliantly written characters in this entire series. He is a man who has been put in impossible situations over and over again, and yet he always manages to carry himself with a kind of quiet dignity that just makes you love him more every single time. So watching this episode give him the conclusion he truly deserved was something I personally found deeply satisfying, even through all the tension and the heartbreak. The episode opened with Richardson making his move, and when I say that man is terrifying, I genuinely mean it. The way he cornered Lord John, the way he weaponized John's deepest, most private secret as a tool of manipulation, using the threat of exposing John's sexuality publicly to force him into pressuring Harold Grey into keeping the British forces engaged in the war. It was chilling to watch. Richardson is the kind of villain who does not just want to win. He wants to control. And what made this moment even more awful was that Richardson was not just threatening Lord John for power. He was using him as a chess piece in a much bigger political game, and John was completely trapped. But of course, Lord John Grey has never been someone who sits passively and waits to be saved. The moment he carved the location of his captivity into his ring was such a perfectly quiet, clever act of defiance, and it showed us once again exactly why this character is so extraordinary. He does not shout. He does not rage. He just thinks and then he acts, and the results are always remarkable. When that information finally made its way to Jamie and William through Percy, what followed was one of the most genuinely thrilling rescue sequences the show has produced in recent memory. There was something so satisfying about watching Jamie move with that quiet determination that we have always loved about him, and seeing William fight alongside his father. Even if William still does not fully understand everything about who Jamie is to him, was incredibly moving. These are men who share blood, who share a kind of instinct for loyalty and protection, even when they cannot fully name it yet. And watching them work together in this rescue felt like the show honoring that bond in a really beautiful way. But then came the moment that genuinely shocked me, and I think it shocked a lot of people. Just when it seemed like Richardson was finally going to face the consequences of everything he had done, just when we thought justice was coming, we learned the truth about him. Richardson is a time traveler. And not just any time traveler. He came back specifically to try and end slavery. He was not a monster without reason. He was a man from another time who believed so deeply in a cause that he was willing to do terrible things to try and change the course of history. And the tragedy of that reveal is that it immediately complicated everything. Because on one hand, how can you not understand someone whose entire motivation was to eliminate one of the greatest evils in human history? But on the other hand, as Claire has always said, and as the show has always made devastatingly clear, you cannot change the past. History does not bend to personal will, no matter how righteous that will might be. The events that are meant to happen will happen, and no amount of time travel can rewrite what is already written. Claire, being the person she is, wanted to give Richardson another chance. She saw the good intention underneath the ruthless execution, and she reached for compassion even in that moment. But Lord John Grey made a different choice. And honestly, I understood it completely. Lord John had been through something genuinely traumatic at Richardson's hands. His dignity had been threatened, his safety had been stolen, and his most private self had been used as a weapon against him. When Lord John killed Richardson, it was not cruelty. It was the act of a man reclaiming his own story. But it also meant that we lost the chance to learn more about Richardson's possible deeper connections to Claire's world, to the mysterious Master Raymond, and to whatever larger tapestry of time travelers exists in this universe. That unanswered thread is going to stay with me, and I suspect it will stay with a lot of you too. What came after the rescue, though, is what really broke me open emotionally. Watching Jamie and Lord John finally completely make peace with each other, after everything they have been through together, after all the complicated history and the shared grief and the profound respect that has always existed between them, it was the kind of moment that reminds you why this show has lasted as long as it has. These are not just characters. These are people we have grown up alongside. And then watching Jamie look back at William as William walked away, the way he finally turned around, finally gave William that moment of acknowledgement that he had denied him years before. I am not going to pretend I did not need a moment after that. Because that was everything. That was Jamie acknowledging his son, honoring the relationship that exists between them whether or not it can ever be fully spoken, and it was devastating in the best possible way. And I want to take just a second to talk about the detail with Claire's book, because I think it deserves more attention than it might have gotten in the flood of everything else that happened in episode 9. The fact that the first words Claire wrote in her book were the exact same words that opened Diana Gabaldon's original Outlander novel, that was not an accident. That was the show doing something really intentional and really beautiful. It was a reminder of where all of this began. It was a full circle moment that connected this finale season back to the very first page of the first book. And it gave Claire's story a sense of authorship, of ownership over her own narrative, that felt deeply right. Claire has always been the heart of this story. She is the one we followed through the stones first. Of course, episode 9 also reminded us that there is no escaping what is coming. Benjamin Cleveland showing up again was the show's way of pressing its foot to the floor and making sure we all understood. The Battle of Kings Mountain is not a distant threat anymore. It is right here. It is the next thing. And episode 10 is where we are going to watch it unfold. Now let's talk about the finale. Let's really talk about it because I have been turning this over in my mind for days and there is so much to unpack. The Battle of Kings Mountain is one of the most significant moments in the American Revolutionary War. It is a real historical event, which means the show is working within boundaries that cannot be moved. The battle happened, the Patriots won, and the Loyalists were decisively defeated. That is the historical record. And as we know from everything this show has ever taught us about time travel and the immovability of history, those facts are not going anywhere. What the show can control, though, is how we experience it through Jamie and the people around him. I think the first half of the episode is going to be devoted to preparation and farewell. We have seen in the promo that there are deeply emotional conversations happening before the battle begins, and I think that is exactly right. Jamie has always been a man who understands the weight of what he is walking into before he walks into it. He has been a soldier for most of his life. He knows how battles end, and he knows that not everyone who enters one walks out of it. So I fully expect those goodbye scenes to be absolutely devastating. The goodbye between Jamie and Brianna in particular, I already know that one is going to be difficult to watch without crying. Because Brianna has spent so much of this season terrified of losing her father, and watching them face that fear together, even briefly, is going to carry the full weight of their entire complicated, tender, extraordinary relationship. And then the battle is going to begin. Based on everything we know from the historical record and from what Frank wrote in his book, the Battle of Kings Mountain was a brutal, decisive engagement. Benjamin Cleveland was indeed a ruthless and ferocious fighter, and his presence on that battlefield is going to be felt immediately. I also think we are going to see Mr. Whittaker play a role that surprises people, because the show has been quietly building towards something with that character, and a moment of unexpected help during the battle would land exactly right dramatically. The Patriots are going to win. That much is certain. But the cost of that victory is what the finale is really going to be about. Because here is the moment I think we have all been dreading and, in some strange way, waiting for. The promo showed us Jamie in a vulnerable moment on that battlefield. And everything, the editing, the tone, the look on Claire's face in the footage we have seen points to Jamie being gravely wounded during the fighting. And I want to be honest with you about how I feel about this, because I personally do not believe for a single second that Outlander is going to end with Jamie Fraser truly and permanently dead. I have never believed that. Not because I am in denial, but because everything the show has been building toward this entire season points somewhere different. Think about the blue light. Think about how deliberately and consistently the show has drawn our attention to Claire's healing abilities, and specifically to this blue light that seems to exist at the absolute edge of what any ordinary medicine or science can explain. We have watched Claire do things throughout this series that should not be possible. We have watched her pull people back from the edge of death in ways that feel almost supernatural. And the blue light, in particular, has been treated by the show with a kind of reverence, a kind of weight that tells me it is not just a narrative curiosity. It is a promise. It is the show setting something up that is going to pay off in the most important moment of the entire series. And what moment could possibly be more important than this one? If Jamie receives a fatal wound on that battlefield, and I think he will because the promo is pointing directly at it, and if Claire runs to his side, which we have also seen, then I believe the finale is going to give us the moment the entire show has been quietly building toward. Claire is going to use the blue light, and she is going to bring Jamie back. Not through medicine, not through skill alone, but through something that exists at the intersection of her love for him and whatever extraordinary ability has been living inside her all along. This is the scene I think the show has been moving toward for longer than we even realized. The blue light was never just a curiosity. It was the answer to the question the show has been asking since the very beginning. How do you hold on to someone who the universe keeps trying to take from you? The answer, it turns out, is with everything you have, including the parts of yourself you cannot even fully explain. And here is where it gets even more interesting, because this connects to one of the most fascinating and debated mysteries in the entire series. Jamie's ghost. As many of you know, the very first episode of Outlander showed us a ghost outside Claire's window in 1945 Scotland. And the prevailing theory has always been that this ghost was Jamie, watching over Claire from across time. But the question of when that ghost exists, when in Jamie's timeline this apparition belongs, has never been definitively answered.